Welcome back to Forecourt Figures, where today I'm going to be undertaking my first ever WWF Hasbro custom project, where I'm going to be attempting to turn this guy into this guy. So as you can see, I've got a Razor Ramon figure. Just one I picked up on eBay. Wasn't too expensive, although Razor's one of these guys that you can't really get ridiculously cheap. But I got a reasonable deal. I was watching like 5 or 6 of them, and this was the cheapest I managed to negotiate somebody down for this Razor. So what I'm hoping to do is turn Razor, because he's in his tights, well, his pants I suppose, but his wrestling tights, short wrestling tights, and his waistcoat, his vest. I thought he'd make a really good Hollywood Blondes Brian Pillman. So I picked up this 3D printed Brian Pillman head, and hoping that I can eventually get myself a Hasbro Brian Pillman figure. So I'm not going to be able to do it in like one go, so it's probably going to take me a few days, if not a few weeks. But what I thought I'd do is I'd document it, the whole process, and let you see how I got on, because as I say, this is the first time I've ever attempted to customise a Hasbro. So all I've done so far is I've popped the head off Razor. As you can see, he doesn't have a head anymore. So the way I did that is, I mean, I've put in a fair bit of research to this. I didn't want to make a mockery of this. I didn't want to completely balls it up. So I did actually, rather than just jumping into it and see how I got on, I did actually do a bit of research, and I asked some questions to some people online, and watched a few videos and things. So one of the things I found out was how to get the heads off of Hasbro's. So dumped him in boiling water for a while until the plastic sort of loosened up a little bit. And just popped his head straight off. It was easy enough to do, really easy actually. It almost just slid off once you'd had him in the water. I was a bit concerned that having him in boiling water might affect his action, so I just kind of put him in upside down and held his head under, and that seemed to do a trick, because his action's fine. And it was really important to me that I had a working Hasbro. I don't want to do this with one that's completely banged up and the action doesn't work. So I mean, this one's reasonably good shape in that front anyway. Its joints are relatively stiff and the action works as well, so this is why I'm kind of taking my time over it and making sure I do it well. So the only other thing I've done is I've sanded him down a little bit, because I don't want to put some paint onto him and then it'll just all flake off and break off. So I have sanded down the bits that I'm painting. I'm hoping that I'll be able to just leave his body tone, his body colour as it is, but obviously I'm going to have to find a match for the face. So it might be that if I don't manage to get an exact match, I'll have to paint his body again as well, in which case I might have to do a bit more work on the sanding front. I have sanded down his boots, his vest, his pads, his shorts, his tights, but I've not really done that much around his body. So if I can't get away with just leaving that the colour it is, because it looks like it's in relatively good nick, the paint doesn't look sun faded or anything, so it'd be a shame to have to do it again. I probably wouldn't be able to do it as well if I'd done it again. But yeah, I'll see how it looks, if I can get a face skin tone that matches the body skin tone of the figure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and I'm going to paint Brian Pillman's head and come back and see how we got on with that. So quick update on this one. I have now painted Brian Pillman's head. Relatively happy with the way it came out. I bought a few different paints, different colours to try and do the hair, because obviously they are the Hollywood Blondes, even though I'd say Pillman's kind of more of a light brown than a blonde, but I thought you don't want to get too dark a hair colour. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the way that it came out. I found the eyes really difficult to do because it was so fiddly, and one thing I have realised is that I probably need glasses, man. It's so difficult trying to get the pen right in there just to put the little pupil in the eyes. But other than that, I think it's pretty decent. Problem that I've discovered though is that, so this is the only skin tone I could really get. The only one that looked like a realistic skin tone, and I don't mind it. Once I put it on the head, I thought, yeah, that's okay. but it was miles off what Razor's body was. So I've had to sort of try and get Razor's body to match. It's still wet, it's still drying, but I can tell almost immediately it's going to need several coats because, like, as I say, his body tone, I did sand him down so that the paint would take. I didn't want it to just flake off or anything, so I've sanded Razor down completely, and I've given him a little like masking tape waistcoat. I know that probably wasn't necessary because I'm going to paint the waistcoat on top, but I just wanted to see like how effective the masking tape would actually be as well, because I'm going to have to do the reverse of that when I come to paint Brian Pillman's Hollywood Blondes metallic silver waistcoat. I'm going to have to mask off the body parts. So I just thought to see how effective the masking tape was, and if the amount I've put on is going to be enough, or if I have to totally soak it in. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to do a few more coats of that body tone, that skin tone on the Razor body, just to get it to actually look solid and not patchy, and get it to take properly. So I'm going to let this one dry and then try and do a couple of more coats at least, and see how that looks. And I will I'll come back with an update once I've done that. So quick update on this one. I actually got slightly carried away since my last kind of update clip. The last time I think I recorded, I had like the masking tape waistcoat on the Razor body, and I was thinking about painting the body, and I kind of got carried away. A couple of things that I noticed is that the masking tape, first of all, is just, that's rubbish. That's absolute garbage. Because when I pulled it off, there was like a combination of little sticky bits of tape left. I basically was trying to mask off the waistcoat so that I could paint the body and the waistcoat two different colours, but like with a sharp line. I've not really I've went back and tried to touch it up, but it's not really managed that well. Yeah, there was like leftover bits of tape, and then when I would pull the tape away, it would take a little bit of paint with it as well. And I don't know if maybe that's because I left it overnight to dry, but I don't know if maybe I should have left it longer. But anyway, so I think masking tape is more or less redundant for what I'm doing, because it doesn't seem to have the desired effect. It seems to just get in the way and make things kind of more messy. Like the whole point of having the masking tape there, so there's like kind of crisp, nice clean lines, but I think it makes it harder to have a clean line when you've got the masking tape to pull away. So anyway, as I say, I kind of got carried away a little bit because of what I was noticing with the rest of his body. Like his elbow pad up here was taking a lot to cover up. This is like 3 at least coats to try and just get the body all one colour. So I thought, well, do you know what, I'm just going to paint his whole body that body colour, and then that'll at least give the kind of a base layer, a sort of I don't want to call it primer, but you know, something like a foundation to paint on top of, because Brian Pillman is going to have white boots, white knee pads, black trunks. So obviously turning black boots, which Razor had, to white is going to be difficult. So if I put this body skin tone, flesh tone on top first, it might be easier to paint them white once it's all kind of dried and set. But it's getting there. I'm quite happy with the metallic paint even for his waistcoat. I've got a bit of a dilemma with his waistcoat, because the Hollywood Blondes had Hollywood Blondes written on the back of the waistcoat with a red star in the middle, and then either Stunning Steve or Flyin Brian in the middle of the star. So I've managed to pick up some stars, like just basically like some stickers that are star shaped that look exactly like the star that was on the back, and it's the right scale, the right size and everything. But I'm not too sure about the detail, so I'm thinking I might have to go back and kind of print off the detail, but then I'm thinking, how do I stick it on? I don't really want it to look like it's just a bit of paper stuck to the back. But one thing that might save me on that front is that, as you can probably see, the flesh tone that I've got, and it's the only one I could find. I couldn't find, I mean, there was others that were kind of promoted as flesh tones, but this was the one I thought was most like a skin tone. I didn't really click register when I was painting the head, but once I've painted his body, I've realised it's like a matte finish rather than a gloss finish. So obviously the waistcoat's a metallic finish, so I don't really want it to be that matte finish, that kind of dry finish. So I'm going to go back once I've finished the entire figure and put like lacquer over the top just to give it a bit of a shine. So maybe if I've got some kind of detail on the back, then that might kind of just, I don't know, stick it down, finish it off. But it might look better than if it was just a bit of paper that was stuck to the back with a lacquer. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in that front yet. I'll think about it, because obviously once it's done, it's done. You don't want to start having to take things off again. But generally speaking, I'm happy enough with the way it's going. The waistcoat, I might go back and touch up a couple of little bits. Sorry, he's stuck to a receipt at the moment because there's wet paint on his feet. But I don't know if you can see it. I've struggled to really get a nice clean finish between the skin and the waistcoat. So I might go back and touch up a tiny little bit here and there. But when you put the head on, I mean, obviously I need to fix that on, and that's going to be a pretty significant part of the video as well when I fix his head on. I'm quite happy with how it's looking, how it's shaping up. You know, I think the head, it's the right shape, the right size. The way that his hair is sculpted, it does sit quite nicely just on those shoulders, which I didn't know beforehand. It's just purely by chance. So I quite like the way it sits there. Also, once I secure it, it's not going to be able to move. It's just going to be like a solid, secure head. But I think, I don't want to be like too confident too soon, but I think it's looking like it's going to be a decent outcome. So anyway, I'm going to keep at it. Next moves are, I'm going to try and colour his boots white and his trunks black, and then after that I'll be looking to add some of the little details to the waistcoat and to the trunks and stuff, and then hopefully I'll come back with an update at that point. So a quick update on Brian. Since the last time I sort of tracked the progress, recorded the progress, I have I've painted his boots. So I've now got his boots looking like how I want them, nice shiny glossy white. It was tricky, you know, I had to kind of go back over it 2 or 3 times, and looking at it close, I have to go back again just to try and define that line between where the boots stop in the mould and where the figure's legs actually start, just to get that kind of colour balance right between the different sculpt, the different mould of the boots and the legs. So might have to go back over that again. The other thing I've done is I've stuck the red star on the back. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the Hollywood Blondes on the back, because obviously the Hollywood Blonde is like in kind of like cursive handwriting font on his back, and I thought, well, I don't really want to freehand it, because I don't think it ever looks good on customs when someone just freehands some detail like that. But then I didn't want to just cut out a bit of paper, like print it off and cut it out and then stick that. That sometimes looks even worse. So I'm quite happy with the way the star looks. This is just like a normal, like the kind of stickers that teachers give out, or reward charts or something. It's a normal red star. So I'm quite happy how that looks. And I thought maybe I would even just leave it like that, because, you know, that's kind of in keeping with Hasbro's, when there was too much detail or wasn't enough room for detail, or the detail had to move to a different area on the figure, then he just did that. You know, they didn't care about being true to life. But then I found online sort of peel off stickers similar to this red star that were like in an italic font letters. I think they were meant for making wedding invitations or something, but it looks like they might be the right size and the right kind of font and everything to just spell out Hollywood Blondes on the back of the waistcoat. So hopefully when they come, that will be a solution to that. I've not painted his trunks yet because I thought I had a black and I don't. You know, I remember ordering a black, and then when I went through all the paints that I have for this project, I couldn't find the black. So I don't know if I didn't order it, or if maybe the place I ordered it from have not sent it. I'm not sure what's happened there, but I've ordered another black now, along with some lacquer to finish him off. So hopefully when that arrives, I'll be able to paint his knee pads and his trunks, and that'll be us getting close to finished. I mean, probably the biggest part left to do is to stick his head on. So I think the way that it looks just now, it's looking like it's getting there. I mean, I quite like how it's going to look when he's got his head on, but I need to fix it. I need to secure that, and that's something I've not done before. I'm going to use something called Milliput, I think it's called. I've looked it up online. I've checked out a couple of YouTube videos of other people using it and stuff, so I'm going to give it a go and then just kind of secure it into place. But I'll probably have to do that like second to last, I think, because as you can see on the back, his hair is going to come quite far down his back. So to get the detail on the Hollywood Blondes detail, his hair's going to like overhang that. So I'm going to have to put a detail on first and then secure his head, just so that it kind of looks how it should, you know, with the writing underneath the hair. I don't want to just like miss out letters because his hair's in the way. So I'll probably be leaving securing his head right until the end. And then the last thing I'll do once I've finished painting it all is get it covered in lacquer and hopefully give it that kind of shine that I want it to have. There's a couple of other small little details I'll see how we go with. There's meant to be some stars on the trunks, meant to be black stars on the boots, and meant to be like his initials up here on his lapel, FB for Flyin Brian. But I don't know if I'm going to manage that. I mean, that might just be a step too far. But I'll see how we go, see if I can find any little stickers or transfers that kind of address those areas. And if not, I'll probably just leave it off because I think it's coming together quite nice. But anyway, so once my black paint arrives, I'll get his pads painted, I'll get his trunks painted, and I'll come back for another update. Well, that was probably the most tricky part of the process so far. Getting his trunks and his knee pads painted. I mean, you can probably tell it's still not perfect. I kept going over the line in black, so I was waiting for it to dry and then going over the skin tone again. And then I was getting like little kind of splashes and stuff on the black, so I'd have to wait for that to dry and go back, touch up the black bits. It's still not perfect. I might have to go over it once more. So that was really frustrating, really difficult. But the other thing I've done is I've added a detail to the back as well. So as you can see, he now has Hollywood Blondes on the back of his waistcoat, and I've got the red star on his trunks as well. I don't have any of the smaller stars yet. I'm still waiting for them to arrive. I think there's meant to be like a black star on the side of his boot, and there's meant to be red stars on the front lapel here, which I've not got yet. So I'll wait till they come and see how they look. I may not bother with them though, because if they're not the right size, they're not going to sit properly, then I won't bother. But I'm quite happy with how the waistcoat, the back of the waistcoat's come out. It took ages. It took absolutely ages to get every single letter positioned. I mean, I started off thinking that it would just be a kind of slight curve, but then obviously the letters were too big. I had to make this kind of steep curve here, and the letters were sticking to each other, that kind of stuff. So it took ages to reposition them and get them all lined up. And it's probably not perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's probably as good as it's going to get at the moment. So I'm kind of going to just cut my losses and settle for that. So the biggest concern I had with the detail on the back was at the top here, like the L's and the Y, because obviously like the Y, they're maybe lowercase, like the H and the B are meant to be capitals, but everyone else is lower. Every other letter is lowercase. But getting the Y to sit down like in line with the bottom of the L would mean that the tail of the Y was on the star, and I thought that just looks silly. So I was worried about that, but when you put his head on, his hair completely covers the Y up. So I think, okay, I'll take that. I'm happy enough with that. So yeah, I'm going to touch him up a bit more, get the little kind of paint splashes here and there tidied up, attach his head, and if the other stickers arrive and they work, they fit okay, I'll add them. If not, I'll leave them off. And then I'm just going to lacquer them all off, and that'll be him. So the next step is to use this stuff here to try and stick his head on. So I'm sure that will be like a very kind of intricate and interesting process, but I'm not going to film it. I think I'm just going to try my best to get it done and let you know the results. So come back shortly. So I think that's him now finished. I think that is Hollywood Blondes, Flyin Brian Pillman now complete in his Hasbro custom. Since the last time I just checked the progress, I've secured his head, so that was actually really easy. I thought it was going to be so much more difficult than it was. It's basically just, there's two different types of putty inside the Milli putt. You blend them together, mix them round till it's one kind of consistent colour, consistent putty, and then once you've done that, whatever you do with it at that point, it starts to set. So you just basically squash it, his head down with the putty on top, and then it sticks and it's rock hard now. So all good. I've managed to touch up as much of the paint as I can. There are a couple of little bits that just where two colours meet each other that I'm not entirely happy with, but I'm at the stage now where when I try and make it better, when I try and touch it up and just finish it off, I end up making another bit worse or something like that. So I'm just going to leave it. I think it's not going to be perfect, but then it's a custom, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But yeah, so I've got Hollywood Blondes in the back. He's got his red star both on the front and the back of the trunk. It's not entirely accurate. He's actually meant to have 3 red stars, but I just couldn't get stars small enough. He's also meant to have some stars on his lapel, but again, couldn't find them small enough. But I'm quite happy with it, the way that the FB Flyin Brian initials have come out. The other thing, he's meant to have stars on his boots, and even though I couldn't get stars small enough to depict how the Hollywood Blondes look like, how the Hollywood Blondes boots look, these are the smallest stars I could get, and I don't think they look terrible. I mean, they're obviously not exactly what the Stunning Steve and Flyin Brian wore, but it's not awful. So I'm kind of happy enough with it. So one last thing to do. Actually, as I'm looking at it, I can see there's a little bit of silver paint on his chest. I'll need to tidy up. But once I've done that, the only thing to do then is to get him nice and shiny with a lacquer, and hopefully, so just to put a nice sort of Hasbro-like finish on him, and then hopefully that'll be it. So I'll be back with that just shortly. So here is the finished product. Here is my WWF Hasbro custom Flyin Brian Pillman from the Hollywood Blondes. Overall, I'm really happy, really happy. I didn't expect it to come out quite as good as this. It's not perfect. It doesn't look immaculate, but you know, I mean, if you get up close to it and really inspect it, you can tell it's a custom. But I think, like, from a distance, it looks all right. You know, I think it looks like that could have been a Hasbro. It could have been something that somebody made. I mean, that Hasbro made even. The only sort of thing I would maybe try and do differently next time is obviously the head. I've molded the head on, so the head can't move. So it's not a huge issue, because the Hasbro figures like Ultimate Warrior or Undertaker or British Bulldog, who have like long hair like that, their heads don't move anyway. I mean, they are articulated. You can feel underneath that there is movement, but the hair restricts them from moving. So if this was a genuine Hasbro, Brian's hair would stop his head from moving anyway. But that's maybe the only thing that I think I might try and improve on if I was to do that again. But other than that, yeah, I'm really happy. I think he's come out really well. You know, action works. The thing about the joints and the action is obviously it's difficult to try and not paint over them, but then not miss any parts of the paint, because you don't want to affect the movement by like clogging up joints or anything with the paint or the lacquer. But I think by and large, I can't complain. I think it's come out decent. So yeah, happy with that. The only issue that I have now is because when I thought about doing a custom, I thought, well, who'd be a good figure to custom? And I was thinking about some of my favourite wrestlers from like the 90s and even previously. I mean, Brian Pillman's a guy that I liked when he was in WWF, when he was in the Hart Foundation, and because of that, I kind of researched his backstory and what else he'd done. And a really, really fascinating guy, like, as a wrestler and as just a person. And looking back retrospectively, the Hollywood Blondes was a bit before my time, but looking back retrospectively, I really liked that whole concept. So that's kind of why I landed on Razor with his waistcoat making one of the Hollywood Blondes. The only problem now is that I feel like I need Stunning Steve as well. I feel like I'm going to have to make a Stunning Steve Austin to go with a Flyin Brian Pillman. So yeah, that might be my next project. That might be my next video, is to try and make myself a Stunning Steve to go with him. But for now, that's it. That's us. Let me know what you think about my very first custom Hasbro attempt. Drop me a comment. If you like the video, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications. Stay safe, and we'll speak soon.